Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Mid-Level Media, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. I am Ken. Today, guys, we are here to talk about this latest release from Paramount as part of the Paramount Presents line. We are talking about Bringing Out the Dead on 4K today, guys. This is a Martin Scorsese film. This is starring Nicolas Cage. Did you guys know that Nicolas Cage was in a Martin Scorsese film, and it's called Bringing Out the Dead? I don't feel like enough people talk about this movie for anybody to really know that as a well-known fact, so I'm just throwing it out there, okay, to you guys. I know most of you guys that are watching this video have probably seen this movie. You're like, shut up, Ken. Just get on with the review and let us know what the picture quality is like. Well, I want to talk about the movie first, guys. We're going to talk about the movie, then we're going to talk about the picture quality. We're going to talk about the special features, because my God, did Paramount deliver on special features. We're going to talk about sound. We're going to do a little unboxing as well, okay, for this incredible Paramount Presents edition. But before we get into it, guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. All right, we talk about physical media on this channel, Blu-rays, 4Ks, only the movies that you love, all that stuff there behind me every single day. So if you like that kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button, and then comment down below, guys, your thoughts on Martin Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead. I feel like this is a movie that a lot of people love. I feel like this is a movie a lot of people love. And I also feel like it's a movie that equal amounts of people do not love. I feel like it's a very divisive Martin Scorsese film, but the people that love it passionately, and they champion it. It's just one of those movies, guys. And I'll say this, and I'm going to get into my review right now. I like the movie. I enjoy the movie. I feel like this is a film, though, because I watched it for the first time, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and I didn't get as much from it when I watched it then as I did this time watching it, because this is a movie that on the surface, it's very just fast and frantic and wild and almost dreamlike. The movie itself doesn't feel like at times that it operates within like normal reality. It doesn't feel like it operates within like the normal rules of the world. Like, it just feels otherworldly at times. It almost feels like a dream. And at some points a nightmare when you're watching it. So you're like, is this for real? Like, is what's happening really what's going on in the film? You're just kind of confused when you watch this movie for the first time. And then when you watch it for the second time, you kind of get into the themes of the film and what the movie is trying to say. This is a movie about EMS workers, EMTs, and just like their nightly routine and what they go through, the trauma of what they go through. You got the character of Nicolas Cage, who's obviously going through some stuff. He's got some trauma. He's seen some things. He's been an EMT for a number of years, and he's going through a lot. I would call it PTSD. He's under a lot of stress. He's not sleeping. Like, the character of Nicolas Cage in this movie, and I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, is under a lot of stress. He's going through some stuff. But he has to keep going out every single night, regardless of the fact that he wants his boss to fire him. Like, he's looking to get fired, like actively looking to get fired every single night because he's done with this stuff. But his boss won't fire him, and he has to keep going out and relive this nightmare as an EMT. And I like this film, and this is what I picked up on this time that I didn't notice the first time I watched it. It almost operates kind of like an anthology film. Because every night he's got a different person that's with him. So it feels like a different story because you got him and a different character. So you got, even though it's kind of the same thing and there's an overarching, story with him and Patricia Arquette, and her dad's dying, and they kind of form a relationship between each other with each other throughout the film. So you have that kind of overarching story, but within that, you have these kind of like 3 separate stories of Nicolas Cage going out with 3 different people. The first story would be with John Goodman. The second is with Ving Rhames. And then you got the one with Tom Sizemore that goes into the closing act of the film. So I kind of like that. I kind of think that's pretty cool. And it's something I didn't pick up on the first time I watched it. This is a movie that, even though it feels like something just totally different than anything you've seen from Scorsese before, the closest movie I could compare it to of his filmography up until this point would be After Hours, just because that movie kind of operates like in a dreamlike world that doesn't feel like total reality at some points. So I would compare it to After Hours, but it really is so different than anything else that he's ever done before. It is very much a commentary, guys. It is a commentary. Like, I can see people that, were EMS workers, were EMTs that went out every night, that did the routine of being in the ambulance, saving lives. I could see people that did that like loving this movie and feeling totally seen by this movie, because this is a movie that's very much a commentary on the grief that you feel, on the guilt that you feel for not being able to save everybody. That's a big theme of this movie. Nicolas Cage cannot save anybody. He keeps saying it over and over again. I can't remember the last time I actually saved someone. And I could totally see that wearing on you over time, just having these cases where you're losing lives and you can't do anything about it. And that has to be like completely traumatizing to your psyche. So the movie just really dives into that. And I could see people that, even people that are workers in hospitals, you know, anybody that's in the medical field in general, I can see really resonating with this movie. So I got to give this movie props just for that, because I don't see a ton of movies that are able to dive into that kind of subject matter in this way, in this very realistic, raw way. So, and Nicolas Cage is just fantastic in this movie. Like, he is an actor, like, he's a legitimate actor, guys. Like, he puts himself into, for better or for worse, like, some people may not be on board with some Nicolas Cage performances, but for better or for worse, like, Nicolas Cage always gives 110% with every single performance that he does, and this movie is no different for sure. He's fantastic in this film. Now, getting into the actual 4K, guys, this is a native 4K restoration from the original camera negative. You got Dolby Vision, you got HDR10, so Paramount spared no expense for this restoration. They put all the bells and whistles in this, and it shows. It absolutely shows. This is a fantastic 4K for sure. Like, the detail is incredible, and this is a first time to Blu-ray and 4K release. So this movie has never been upgraded to HD physically. I believe there was an HD version on streaming, but physically never upgraded to HD, and it got a 4K, and it looks magnificent, guys. Look, it's a Martin Scorsese film. Like, it's got that certain like visual appeal and attractiveness to it. It's also a very like slickly edited film. Like, just some of the cuts that it has, and some of the like up close imagery, like when they're actually riding in the ambulance, the way they show Nicolas Cage's face up close, the way they show the mirrors, the reflections in the windows, like all that stuff looks so incredible in 4K. Those up close shots of Nicolas Cage's face, like, you can see every single detail and the lights reflecting off of his face. There's some really cool shots where they're riding down the street and the ambulance is kind of passing by all these cars. There's some moments that, like, I could see people thinking that maybe that wouldn't look the best in 4K, but somehow they pulled it off. Like, this was pretty consistent, like, across the board. This was a really solid, like, very well done 4K. I honestly couldn't find a weak spot in it when I was watching it. And there's all kinds of moments that I feel like in other 4Ks, like just the way it's edited, the way it's shot, some of the moments where they're going real fast down the street, that I'd be like, okay, well, that would have like a lower quality. Like, that would look worse just because they couldn't figure out how to like properly restore that. But everything looks like immaculate in this 4K. Like, when they're going down the streets, like, that stuff looks fantastic. Even though it's extremely jarring and weird the way they cut it and the way that they edit it, it still looks great. There's some incredible visuals through this film. Just him sitting in the ambulance, like, looking out into the streets and watching the people walk by the buildings, like, so much incredible detail. There's a scene where a guy like spits up blood on the window, and just that visual of the blood on the window, like just how that looks with the HDR, it just looks fantastic. The white of the ambulance itself looks great. It's a pale movie, and I think that's by design. Like, it was supposed to look very dreary. Like, Nicolas Cage himself is very pale. He hasn't been eating right. He hasn't been sleeping. He hasn't been taking care of himself. So that's the way the character kind of looks. But it's a very like gloomy, dreary film. And I believe most of it takes place at night. I think 95% of the film takes place at night, if not 100%. I can't remember if there's any daytime. I just watched it, but I can't remember if there's any daytime scenes at all. So it's all at night. So it's a dark, dreary, gloomy movie, but it looks excellent. Like, there's so much incredible detail. The HDR, even though there's not a ton of colors, the colors that there are, it's really enhancing those colors and really providing you just the ultimate like visual experience with this movie. And the Dolby Vision, all that stuff just acting together is fantastic. So I thought the 4K remaster was extraordinary. Now, getting into the audio here, guys, you do have a Dolby Atmos audio track. So if you've got that full setup, you're going to be extremely happy with the sound here, I imagine. Now, I don't have that full setup. I've got a sound bar with a subwoofer, but the sound bar kind of simulates the Atmos, and I thought it sounded fantastic. Like, you get that rush where you're riding down the street. There's some incredible sound design in this film for sure, with the honking of the horns and just the cars and just the city life in general. Like, it all sounded incredible. So great sound here, and if you got that full Atmos setup, I'm sure your experience is going to be even better. And you got to give it to Paramount for putting that Atmos in there, because I feel like a lot of studios, maybe some boutique labels as well, wouldn't add in the Atmos for Bringing Out the Dead. So really cool if they added the Atmos in for this release. Now, getting into the unboxing, guys, is the regular traditional Paramount Presents cover right there. You got, Nicolas Cage on the front. You got the silver spine, which they do for all the 4Ks. You open it up, and you got the original theatrical poster right there for Bringing Out the Dead, which is pretty cool. And then you flip it on the back. You got the list of the special features, the synopsis up at the top. The Paramount Presents mission statement right there, which they always put. You got the specs down there at the bottom. You take it out. You got the clear case, which they always have clear cases. It doesn't matter if it's a Blu-ray or 4K. You flip it on the back right there with more information. You got the casting list on the back. You open it up. You do have a digital code in here as well. You've got the Blu-ray and you've got the 4K here. So nice that they included both of those in this release. Now, all the special features are on the Blu-ray, and I'm going to take the discs out so you can see what is on the inside of the case as well. So very cool. And yeah, guys, let's get into the special features, because that's where I think this release really shines. So they're promoting 9 new special features, and I'll say this right off the bat. There's really only 4 newly filmed interviews. There are only 4 newly filmed interviews. The other 5 are on-set interviews that were done years ago, probably back when the movie was filmed or maybe shortly after the movie was filmed. And I'm guessing they're saying new on the actual press release because they've never before been seen. They haven't been put out on any releases before. They just kind of dug those up and put those on this release. So I think they're new in terms of nobody's ever seen them. But 5 of these interviews are not brand new interviews. They're not interviews that were shot in 2024. So those interviews are Patricia Arquette, John Goodman, Ving Rhames, Tom Sizemore, and Mark Anthony. Those are not new interviews, but they are new to this release. So they're all about 6-7 minutes long. So they're a welcome addition. It's nice to have them, but I don't want to mislead everybody because I was kind of under the impression that they were all new by looking at this. So they are not newly filmed interviews. They are older interviews. Now, let's get into the actual meat of the special features. And this, in my opinion, makes it worth it. You got a new filmmaker focus with Martin Scorsese. This is about a 12-minute long interview with Martin Scorsese talking about Bringing Out the Dead. You can tell he's got a ton of passion for this film for sure. And you could tell he knows it's kind of the black sheep of his filmography, but he has a soft spot for it. He likes it. So I love this interview with Martin. It's really awesome to have an interview with Martin. And I gotta shout out Martin Scorsese because he seems to be down to do these interviews. Like, he seems like really the only big name director that is willing to sit down with these labels and actually cares about his films and do actual interviews for his movies, because I think he did one for After Hours as well. So I give it to Martin Scorsese. The guy's he's in, what is he, in his 80s now? And he's still doing interviews for these physical media releases. I think that's super awesome. You don't see that out of a lot of the established filmmakers. And Martin Scorsese's been an established filmmaker for 50 years now. So I think it's super cool he came back to do an interview for this movie, a 12-minute long interview. Then you get and this makes it worth it too, guys. You get a 14-minute interview with Nicolas Cage. Okay, a 14-minute new interview with Nicolas Cage talking about Bringing Out the Dead and just working with Martin Scorsese for the first time and everything that went with that and how he was super excited to do it. It's a great interview. Great, fantastic interview with Nicolas Cage. You also get a shorter interview with Paul Schrader, who wrote the film. And I think he talks about this in an interview, but it was his last time working with Martin Scorsese because at that point in time, they were both kind of coming up. Well, Martin Scorsese was already a big name at that point, but Paul Schrader was directing films as well. And he talks about how they just butted heads too much because they were kind of developing their own egos at that time. So that was the last time that he worked with Martin Scorsese on a movie. And that was a really great interview as well. And then you get an interview with the cinematographer, Robert Richardson, who does a fantastic job in the movie. Like, the cinematography is one of the best things about the movie. And that's called City of Ghosts. So these are fantastic interviews, guys. And together, I believe they're about 45 minutes long. And then you get the on-set stuff as well. So you got about an hour and 20 minutes of new interviews, some of which never before seen, not newly shot, but some of them are newly shot interviews. So 9 interviews in total. And then you got exclusive cast and crew interviews, additional interviews, and then you got theatrical trailers as well. So as far as the special features, guys, this is an absolutely phenomenal, stellar release for Paramount. I have not seen them do this many features for any Paramount Presents title. So I think that's awesome. And it just speaks to, I feel like Paramount is finally taking this line seriously. They're finally treating it like the boutique line that I feel like they wanted to make it back when they established it back in 2020. They just never quite got there because they've only been putting out like one filmmaker focus for most of these releases. And now they're really kind of honing in on this line and really making it feel more prestigious and more boutique. And I love that. So kudos to Paramount for doing that for this movie, Bringing Out the Dead. I think this is a fantastic release. Really good movie. Really strong 4K. Great features. Great packaging. Great sound. This is a must-own, guys. And I believe it's $31 right now on Amazon. I will link it down below. Like I said, guys, very different kind of Martin Scorsese film. If you've never seen it, maybe check it out first on streaming before you dump $31 into it. But I enjoy the movie, even though I feel like it's kind of divisive amongst film fans. But as a release, totally worth it. If you're a fan of this film, you gotta have this. You gotta own this in your collection. So thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on those bell notifications for all future videos, and we'll see you next time.